Welcome to Heritage Acres Homestead. I'm Chas. Here you'll find our family as we strive to live a life that pleases the Lord. We do our best to make the most out of what we've been given, so we'd like to invite you to come along and join us on our journey. Hey y'all, I'm Chas and welcome back to Heritage Acres Homestead. I am going to talk to you today about a subject that usually puts a little bit of a line in the sand. There are divisions when it comes to this topic. But I want to come to you with a sensible, non-fear-based, just smart approach to the subject. I don't want to come to you as there are many out there and just talk doom and gloom, scare, fear, all this. And what we're going to talk about is being prepared. And for me, being prepared means that no matter what's going on in my life, no matter what's going on in the world, I try to have a little bit of food put back, because whether we have any money, whether we have anything to drive, whether we have anything for anything else, my family needs to be fed. So whatever happens, should sickness arise, should job loss arise, should economic disaster set in, should natural disasters set in, all these things could happen. But no matter what happens, you need to be fed and your family needs to be fed every single day. So what I want to say to you is to take what I'm saying with some thought and prayer and see if it's something you might want to implement into your family. I'm not an advocate for hoarding or for putting up thousands of dollars of food that you will never eat. I am a lady who says, okay, take what your family eats, and hopefully it's not just the junk food route, but take what your family eats and have more of it in your pantry, in some closets, under your bed, or wherever, because if any of those situations hit and you cannot get to the store, at least for an amount of time, your family will be taken care of. And I think that's a really, really important and wise move to make. So let's talk about that a little bit more. Now, over on my Instagram, I ask for people to send me questions about what they would want to hear about or talk about in the subject of preparedness. And I'm going to refer to those as the video goes along. But let me just, first, I want to give you some scripture. Now, if you know me at all, you know that I am a Bible believer. I am a Christian. I stand on God's word. I consider it the ultimate authority, and I want to heed what he says in everything that I do. There are many that think that having a mind of preparedness is not trusting, and I don't find that at all. I look to the many verses that he tells us about taking care of our families, about looking well into our households, about looking at the ant, how it puts up and takes care, and not to be a sluggard. I see all these things. A couple of verses in Proverbs I've actually written down. It says the prudent person sees danger and takes refuge, but the simple just keep on going, and then they have to pay the penalty. And now know that all these things are paraphrased. I'm not reading them word by word, but that was in Proverbs 27. And then in Proverbs 21, it says, the house of the wise has choice food and stores of oil. So I think there's advocation for having a home that can provide for your family. So I find, and I take comfort in the fact that, not that I feel that everything I do is going to save us from any hardships, but being that our family has gone through some hardships and these reserves have helped us through them, I find them very, very wise. Shannon has had a few job losses through the years, and sometime it took a couple of months to get him back into a job. He would work odd jobs to help bring him through until another job was found. But there were times, and we are a lean family already. We have a one income, we're one income family. And so money is not, is not something that we take for granted at all. We try to be very frugal and very wise with what money that God does bring in. So I told you earlier that we were going to go through some of the questions that was asked through my Instagram, but there are a lot. So I'm going to take the first, so many, and then we'll probably do a part 2 and possibly a part 3, depending on how much we can cover. And, not too long of a time, because like I told him on Instagram, there is a quote from my pastor. He says it quite a lot. He says, the mind can only hear and understand what the seat can endure. So I don't want to keep you here for too long. I just want to give some good information and hopefully some encouragement to you if you decide to pursue putting back a little more food for your family for emergencies. So one question that I got was, how do you store it? So there's a lot of different ways that you can preserve food. The majority of mine is canning. There are freeze dryers out that you can buy now, but they're quite an investment. I would love to have a freeze dryer. I enjoy freeze dried foods, especially like fruits and vegetables. I think those are great to have on hand. They're a little bit pricey to purchase, but I would love to do it myself, because then you know exactly which vegetables and fruits go in there, and you know how to do it yourself. But at the same time, freeze dryers take up a lot of space, and they put off a lot of heat. And so if you don't have an optimal spot for it, you could really be running people out of the kitchen or cluttering up an already tight space with something that puts off a lot of heat and takes a long time to do it. So if I ever do have the opportunity to have a freeze dryer, I hope that I can have a small room that I would use as a pantry and whatnot to keep it in, and that way it wouldn't heat up the house. But so freeze drying, that's one thing. Freeze dried foods is a great way to keep things. Canning, which is my preferred way. I have a lot of canned foods. You can also freeze things, and I do freeze things, but I am very selective with what I freeze because I don't have that much freezer space, and I want to keep frozen meats on hand because I prefer frozen meat to canned meat, but I do have both. And that way I can, if the power were to go out, I would can all my meat. If it were to, threaten to be power outage for so many days, I would pull my meat from the freezer and can it. I do keep canned meat already, but it's because I need the space. So again, I'm gonna show you how to can some ground beef at the end of the video. Then there's dehydrating, which is another great option. Again, it's one of those things that I'm selective on. I don't love all dehydrated food, but I do like some. Same thing for canning. I don't care for home canned corn. I don't like it. I would much rather have frozen corn because of the way we process it. I've tried frozen corn on the cob. Okay, let me go back. I've tried canned corn from the garden in a jar, and I don't care for it. I much prefer our creamed corn to be frozen. It tastes the most like fresh, in my opinion. So like I said, I am selective on that, and that's the route I go. And I do save room in my freezer for corn. I don't like frozen corn on the cob, so I don't do that. So it's all depending on what you and your family like, and there may be a time of trial and error. So, you try something and you see, okay, this is not for us. But that's the beauty of it. I mean, you can still eat it even if you don't love it. There's still nourishment there. And so that's something that we've got to figure out in our head. Another question I get is, I don't have a lot of space. Well, I'll tell you, I don't either. Now, you may look and see my canning pantry and think, oh, she's got so much space. And that is beautiful and wonderful. And I'm so glad that when we had so much trouble with the house and had to do so much remodeling, that we put that there, because it's recessed into the wall. And so I can fill that up, and it does hold a lot of goods. But I don't have much more space than that. My extra spaces, I was telling Shannon this week, because I'm running out of space in there. I'm thinking I'm going to revamp my cabinets here and rearrange everything, and maybe make this one cabinet here more room for canned goods, because it's deep. It's like my arm length deep. So it would really hold a lot too. But believe you me, there are so many creative places that you could put extra foods. One of the ways I store food, well, let me not go there yet, but let me talk about this first. Consider this. Now this is getting creative, and you might have to do that. Under your bed, there are totes that even totes with little wheels, that if your floor is, something you don't want to scuff up or whatever, you can put the jars or the cans or the bags into these totes, slide them right under your bed, and then that way when you need to, you can pull it out. Now keep these things organized so that maybe make yourself a master list, and keep these organized so you know where you put things. So maybe you have your extra bags of pinto beans underneath your bed and in a tote. And then you have another 5-gallon bucket, which is something I'm going to talk about soon, of ways how to store a 5-gallon bucket with flour in it in your bathroom closet. And this is not unheard of, y'all. This is just trying to best use what space you have. And if putting back is important to you, then you will rethink your situation and try to be creative and come up with something new. So then think about, like, for me, I have in my laundry room, I have buckets lined up underneath the shelf. And the shelf is tall enough that these buckets just line straight up under it, and it works really well. It's not really taking up any other space that I would be using for anything else. So there you go. There's a few ideas. I had a follower on Instagram show me that she had an under her stairs just area that was not really being used for anything. So she and her husband did some creative thinking, and they made a little pantry for extra canned goods under there, and it was so smart. Utilizing areas that are just dead space for food is absolutely smart, in my opinion. It's wise beyond measure because, I mean, what was that space being used for already? Now you have more food to put in your family's bellies, and that's a great thing. Okay, now let's go on to how to store food. Okay, one of my ways that I store things is in 5-gallon buckets. I like to use those. Now this is a food grade bucket, and that's what you want to look for, especially if the food is going to touch the plastic itself. If it's not as bad, but I just always try to find food grade. Another way you can keep it a little safer in the buckets is by using these Mylar bags. Now, this is a brand, but I'm not telling you any certain brand to use. It's just a brand that I have. I'm not affiliated with them at all. So anyways, but it's a good brand. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying I'm not an affiliated partner with them. So these bags, and let's open this one. Now this is a smaller bag. It's not for the 5-gallon buckets, but I just thought I would show you how they work. And one thing I do like about these brands, this brand that I have here, is they come with the bags. You pull these out. And they come with the oxygen absorbers, which if you're going to be keeping your goods in there for long-term storage, then this is a good option. Now, I will tell you that I've not always used Mylar bags and oxygen absorbers. I have many things that I've stored without either. Now, it may not be perfect when I go to get it out of that box or out of that bag or out of that bucket, but it's still okay. All right, so here we go. This is a Mylar bag, and it's a small one, like I said. And it has a Ziploc top here. And your foods would go ahead and go in there and fill it up. I think this opens. Okay, yeah, it opens a little bit bigger on the bottom. So there you go. This, let me see what size this one says. This is a 8.5 by 6.5. And it's going, the reason why you would like these is because no air will get in once they're sealed. And you put the oxygen absorber in. Light won't get in because they're so thick. And these are food grade and BPA free. And and also once they're sealed, you could throw this in a pot of boiling water and it stays watertight. So that's great. In case you had any, issues with water or a leak or anything like that, it's going to keep your food watertight. Now, again, I would only use these if you were going into serious, I want to store things for a long time. Because once you put the food in here, you're going to seal it, and then you can take like a flat iron curling iron, or I guess if it's a flat iron, it's not really a curling iron, although some people do that now. I could never figure it out. But then you're gonna run that along the top and it will seal. So there is another option. And you could take this and you could put it, like, say you did herbs. This would be a great size for herbs. You put the herbs in, you seal it, you write what you have on there, then you stick it in your bucket and you fill that bucket full. And what I like to use is on the top, This is called a gamma seal. And what it does is it spins, and you can remove it and get into your bucket easily. Now see, this is a bucket that I'm pulling from right now, so I don't have it filled with a Mylar bag. I don't have an oxygen absorber in there because I pull from it often enough that I don't need it. But if you're gonna keep something for a long time, putting a Mylar bag with an oxygen absorber and sealing it in a bucket is a great idea. But you could do these, put them in a tote, and label that tote, say that's all your herbs, and then these are gonna not, the smells and the taste won't transfer to each other. And that might be what I do. I might put bulk herbs in there and fill my next bucket up that way. And see, another thing is the prices of everything is going up rapidly. Sadly, no matter what you do, every time it seems you go to the store or you order something offline, it's a little bit more for a few ounces less. And shrinkflation is a very real thing. So having extras put up can save you money in the long run because you're paying less for it now than you will in 6 months or a year. So this is, again, this is a wise way of living, not a fearful or a I have to do this because I think, it's doomsday. I'm not a doomsday prepper. I'm a simple woman who's trying to put away for the future to make things a little easier on my family. And also, like I told someone else, I'm not hoarding it away in the fact that it'll never be used. If recently, I bought another 50 pounds of oats. So my last 50 pounds of oats are almost used up. I'm replenishing that stock. And I'll tell you that last 50-pound bag of oats did not cost me what this new 50-pound bag cost. There was a big difference price-wise. And that's another good thing, if you like to know that kind of thing, is to keep a list on prices and when you purchased it, and then today's prices and what you purchased, and you can see the kind of difference that how much more prices have jumped. It's very, very rare occasions if you ever see that the prices have come down. Okay, so there's several questions we've answered. We've answered on where to store things if we don't have a lot of space. We've, I dream. Now, I love my home, and I don't know that the Lord's going to move me anywhere else. I'm very content with my home and where I am, and there are things that I would do differently, like mainly just with the land and having more. I would build myself a new room. And that would be for an extra freezer, extra fridge, and a place to process milk when I come in from the goats, and I can pour it up, strain it, put it in the fridge and everything out there. I would also put my washer and dryer out there with it, and that would just be like a large utility room. And then my utility room that I have in here would be a full-on pantry. I have dreams of doing that one day, and that would just make my home even more functional, in my opinion. If that happens, great, but if it doesn't, and then that's where I put the freeze dryer if I were to ever get that room. But if it happens, it's wonderful, and if it doesn't, I'm very content with where I am and what we have. So again, someone wants to know about how much of each thing to store. Now, that's real subjective too. And I am not a proponent of going and putting yourself in a big hole financially right off the bat, unless you have some money that you were going to spend, that you've decided, say, okay, I'm not going to do this that I was going to do. I'm not going to spend it on Netflix or spend it on whatever. I'm going to put that, I had this much saved up and I'm going to put it toward this instead. I think that's great. But I don't want you to feel like you've got to go in debt to do this. If you buy just a few things at a time, it really can impact your food reserves. So you say you're in the market and you're going to get a few cans of this and a bag of this. Maybe buy an extra bag of flour, buy an extra couple of cans of beans or whatever it is that you and your family eat. These of course are things that you can save and preserve, not things that are going to perish in just a matter of days or a week. So canned goods, you can store your flour. Some people freeze it and then put it into bags, which is not a bad idea. I'll tell you, I don't go that step. I just put it into my containers and use it that way. All right, someone else has asked me, what are your top 10 things to buy extras of? All right, so I'm gonna try to go, I didn't write this down, so I'm just gonna try to go off the top of my head and tell you what I do. Okay, flour. Flour is one thing that I try to have plenty of for baking. I do have wheat berries because I use whole wheat sometimes when I'm baking as well, and that way I have both. So I'm going to count that as one. So flour / wheat berries. There's what, and this is no order. This is not like top to bottom or first to last. This is just telling you. Number 2, salt. I think salt is vitally important. So I would suggest putting up some salt in a bucket or bags and having extra. Don't buy junk salt. Get some good stuff. I'll have a link at the bottom for Redmond's. Number 3, you want a sweetener of some kind. You can do your sugar, honey, maple syrup, whichever one of those that you like the best, or a mixture of all of them. If you don't use sugar at all and you use stevia or whatever, have some of that. So our go-tos are sugar, maple syrup, and honey. I do have a little sorghum, but it's not like a stockpile of it. I just have a jar. I do have some molasses. I wish I actually had more molasses than I do, and I might actually get a couple of jars of that when I can, because not only do I use it for us, molasses has lots of good minerals in it, y'all. I use it for my goats too, because it's great to replenish them, especially after kidding or when it's cold. So it's kind of the same thing for us. There's a lot of nutrients in there to help us when we're feeling poorly as well. So use it for my goats and for us. Okay, that's 3. Number 4, rice. We do eat rice and we like rice, and I love just going and pulling from my bucket. I did it last night. Went and pulled from my bucket and got rice instead of having to worry about if I had it or not in little bags in my cabinet. Number 5, pinto beans or other beans. I usually keep a variety of beans on hand. I'm looking at them now. I have some red beans, some black beans, some Great Northern white beans, and then I have pinto beans over here because that's the one we use the most. In my pantry, I keep kidney beans too, which I guess is the same thing as a red bean. And then of course I can my green beans. That's something that we grow or buy and can every year. So there's 5. Now, 6 would be oats. I keep a steady amount of oats. Oh, fats. The fats I keep on hand, and this again is just because this is what I can get. I keep butter, I keep coconut oil, and lard, and olive oil, and a little bit of avocado oil, because that's what I use when I like to make mayonnaise. I would love to have tallow, but I cannot find a good source. And I've called a lot of friends that keep cows, and I have yet to find a good source for tallow. If I could find some, I absolutely would render that down and put it up too. But I don't have it. So fats are super important to have on hand. So there's 7. Number 8. Let's see, what was number 8? I guess number 8 would be my proteins. And those, like I said, are mostly in my freezer. But I'm going to can more of those because of the potential of power surges or loss of power or freezers going down or whatever. I want to have more of those proteins on the shelf. Plus, they make for really quick meals. If you've already got them, and then most of them are cooked or finished cooking while you're processing them, it's super good to have those on hand for those super busy evenings. Let's see. That's 8. Let me think for a minute on number 9 and 10. I can't remember right off. All right, so this next one is going to be kind of a combination for number 9. And I'm going to put that as like yeast or baking soda or baking powder or cornstarch, those kind of things. It's just a combo. So like baking items, I guess it would be a good thing to put that under. That way, you know, most of us, if you're going to have the flour, the grain that you need to bake something, you probably need some leaveners or, of course, sourdough starter. It could be in that category as well. Make sure you have some of that on hand if you do sourdough, whether in fresh form or dried. And I guess the last one, number 10, would be pastas. If you eat pasta, that's something that, as a mom of I say mom of a large family, but my family doesn't seem that large compared to some. But when there's all of us here, and I'm talking kids and son-in-law and grandchildren, there's 9 of us, and some of you, that's just the size of your family. But pasta is something that helps us to stretch things out. And of course, these are all things that have shelf life. I haven't mentioned any kind of fresh stuff or things like of that nature. I didn't even mention any of the things that I can for my canning pantry. Stuff that I always make every single year, or at least every other year to put up. These are just dry good items, and how much you need and how much you use, it all depends on you. It's not, there are formulas out there that people say you can use, but to me, I think it's very much, dependent upon each person and each family. And I guess I'll squeeze one last question in here because it is one that is a bit controversial. Do you can milk? I have. I've also canned butter. And I know both of those are, supposedly a big no-no. But at the same time, I'm like, you know how I feel about the agencies that tell us no? They're the same ones that that do other things that I don't agree with. So I'm like, why should I care what they say? Yeah. So I'm not going to say do that here. I'm just going to tell you I have done it. And you do what's best for your family, and that's where I'm going to leave it at that, because I certainly don't want to kick the hornet's nest too much this morning. All right, y'all. I have about 6.5 pounds of ground beef that's in my cast iron skillet. And what I want to do is I want to start cooking that down. We want to get it to the point where it's, you don't want crispiness, but you want, pretty much done ground beef. And then we're going to pour off any remaining fat that we have. But I'll show you that once we get there. So now it's just a waiting game to let it cook down. So we are very close, but not hardly there just yet, but real close. I want to get a little bit more of that pink cooked up. And I want to get it, chopped fairly finely. I don't want it to be in big chunks. So I'll just continue to use my spatula here and kind of come in and chop it up and finish cooking. It shouldn't take but just a few more minutes. All right, so the ground beef is cooked. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the sink and I'm going to pour it through a colander to remove the majority of the fat, and then I'm going to rinse it with as hot of water as my sink will allow, because even though there's still going to be some fat on it, if you have too much, it can prevent your jars from sealing. So we want to go and rinse the beef. All right, so I have a strainer or a colander in the sink with a bowl underneath. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pour the meat into that. That way I can catch the most of the fat that comes off right away. All that fat came off. Set that out of the way. Sorry for getting in front of the camera. All right, now, because I already have water over here in this sink, I can't swap sides and get it. I'm gonna turn it on as hot as it'll go. Which may take a second. All right, there we go. Now I just want to rinse this briefly. Now I'm going to take a clean jar and I'm going to put the ground beef inside. Now an approximation is that ground beef will fill up, and I say ground beef, but it can be ground pork or any other ground meat, venison, whatever you like, or even a mix. About 2 pounds of meat will go in 1 jar, or thereabout. You want to tap it down to make sure you've really filled it up. Now I'm going to move on to the next. And we're going to just continue filling these until I have enough jars full to go into the canner. Then I'll show you the next step. We've got all of our jars filled with ground beef, and I've boiled some water, and I'm going to fill these jars up to the neck, and I'm going to take a butter knife and I'm going to go around and I'm going to go down the sides of the jars. Let me see if I can fix you so you can see better. Sides of the jars, just trying to get any air bubbles out. We'll do the next one. Another thing I do is kind of give it a tap. And then I've got a rag here with a little bit of vinegar on it. I'm going around the rim. You want to do this with vinegar because the beef is a little bit, greasy. So you want to get any remnants of grease off the rim to make sure you get a good seal. And we'll place our lids. Fingertip tight, and go ahead and start stacking them in our canner. And I will just do this for the remainder of the jars until our canner is full. The valve here popped up, so I put the jiggler on. Now I'm waiting for the jiggler to begin jiggling, and then we'll start our timer. And these are going to process for 90 minutes because they're quartz. Another thing that I have not even touched on, and I probably won't because this video is getting a bit lengthy, is water storage and other, meaning like batteries, flashlights, something to cook with that, in case the power goes out, how to heat your home if the power goes out. All these kind of things are worthy of talking about, but I'm not going to do it in this video because I don't want to stretch it out too long. So in this one, we're simply going to keep it condensed to just food. and leave it at that, and just we'll come back another time and talk about the next things. So don't think that I don't think those things are important. I truly do. It's just I don't want to rush this video to try to get in the others, and I don't want to make it too long for you that you don't want to sit here and listen or watch. So the canner just finished. It is still very, very hot. I'm actually just going to let them sit in there a little longer and finish cooling down just a bit more before I move them out, simply because that was a long time to can, and these are just major hot. I'll bring you back in a few minutes once they've cooled just a little. All right, y'all, that concludes this afternoon's video. I'm really grateful that you've been here. I hope that this helped you see the talk of preparedness is not a foreign concept, or at least in my opinion, it shouldn't be. It's something that is a wise and responsible decision. Like I told you in the beginning, we're not storing away food that can't be eaten at another time. It will eventually be eaten, it will eventually be used, and it's just a frugal way of living. It may cost a few dollars here and there more as you do it, but in the end, you're actually going to be saving yourself and your family money because of the way prices are skyrocketing every day. And plus, you know the food that you're putting away, you know what's in it, you know the ingredients, and you can feel confident in the foods that you're going to be preparing with the stored away food. For being here, thank you for watching, and I hope that this has blessed you in some way. Scared me to death. I hope that it has blessed you in some way, and that you will come back soon. So God bless you, thank you, and have a great day.